Hello and welcome back, dear listeners. If you're tuning into this episode, you're listening to part 2 of our latest podcast episode. If you missed part 1, we highly recommend checking it out first to catch up with all the great insights and discussion we had. We decided to split the episode into 2 parts because we had so much valuable content to share and it became kind of long as well. So we wanted to make sure that you have the best listening experience possible. So thank you for joining us again, and we hope you enjoy the continuation of our conversations from part 1. Next one. We had one cancelled event. Unfortunately, there was one I really wanted to attend as well. It was called Quantifying Marketing ROI, how to measure the impact of your marketing campaigns. And I took the whole schedule for myself like 3 weeks before the whole event. And then a lot of things got moved and cancelled. So 2 of my events got cancelled.
I would have loved to ask there as well, because I mean, that's kind of what both of us do for work, quantifying marketing ROIs.
That's true.
But sadly, that one was not meant to be, and we never found out why. So instead, we went to a different talk called The Power of Business Design, How to Drive Innovation and Growth. This was headed by a UX graphics / website design expert from Netflix. I think he was probably the best speaker the entire time I was there. I don't know about day one because but he was a good presenter. He seemed like a chill dude. He had a real artistry to him. The slides were structured, and for 25 minutes or so, he was quite captivating.
Yes,
he did a really good job, really quick and effectively. And I don't know, what did you think about this?
I really enjoyed it as well. He spoke about the business design and what it means, and he explained one thing I really liked, that they are fighting for not sharing passwords, right? And I really, if it's true, I don't know if it's true or they came up with this story to just humble everyone, that they were not blocking passwords when COVID happens because they knew that there's an economic situation. They were very empathetic, so they did not block Netflix for all the users. And that
the password sharing.
The password sharing, yes. And also that there is more than half of the users of Netflix were actually just leeching on someone else's account, apparently.
Yeah.
And that this quarter, when they started enforcing this blocking part, that they have the best quarter revenue ever since Q1, I think they said. Best revenue they had in like 3 years or something like that, just because they cracked down on that. But also, we were talking about how they use this as a very important learning, that there were so many products that they tried testing and developing to accommodate this blockage, let's say, of the password sharing.
Yeah.
That was very cool. I really like that he said we do not, let's say, restrict ourselves from testing things. And as soon as we have to test things on 10 people or 20 people, we're going to do it anyway.
Yeah, that's the one that shocked me. It's like, oh, that's small sample size and you're still testing. And apparently it works out for them. If anything, that gives me more confidence for all the testing I do at work.
He said also there are a lot of people that actually did not like what they released. More people did not like the products they were conceptualizing and releasing. So therefore he has more failures than successes, and all the successes are the ones, well, obviously you can see live, and that they were very much fractionalizing the releases of any kind of, let's say, features on Netflix and making it super simple and so on. So it was very cool.
Yeah, for me, this was a testament to how you can A/B test UX and UI on these digital platforms so easily, and you can get the best results. And it's happening. It would happen with a certain segment of users for a little while, and they would get their feedback. So I had no idea that's how they did this. You know, I thought they were doing blind tests and testing it anywhere and everywhere, and not really getting qualitative feedback at the end.
Huh. Yeah, it's called UGC. User acceptance testing, so UAT. So what they do is they gather like 10 people, 15 people, and try to tell them, hey, this is how the feature would work, and then just observe what they do, and they gather their feedback, and then basically they have this feedback loop constantly that they do with any kind of idea feature that they want to release. So I really like the guy. He said he doesn't give free Netflix, unfortunately. He has to pay for it as well, which is a little bit sad because that was my first idea. But yeah, very nice guy.
Well, they did offer it to him. He's just out of principle, I think.
I don't believe him, man.
Oh, well.
He just tries to make everyone pay for it. He's like, I'm bringing business, use my affiliate link. I go to share this QR code in the end of the deck.
Alex is calling out tits around us right now.
Next one was a very cool speaker.
The Dutch fellow by the name of Mark Wesseling.
Yes, and his topic was 13 fuck-ups, lessons learned from high-profile startup failures. And I didn't know about this guy. Actually, when I was making the notes, I Googled him, and he has videos from 2012 and 14 when he was on stage. He didn't look the way he looks now, obviously, but the things he was speaking about were always about VC and startups and acceleration and investments. And now I think he said that he has been part of 158 companies that he invested in.
Yeah, it was something like 145, 150. Yeah.
So super many startups that he's part of, and he compiled this list of things why a lot of startups fail. And
this one, I think, viewers, if this video is out, you should check out for yourself, because we can't really do it justice because it's a real rapid fire list.
That's true. Yeah, we have a few from memory, but there was one that I really enjoyed. I took a picture as well. It's like the top reasons startups fail. The 42% fail because there's no market need.
Yeah, to explain that a bit further, what usually happens is companies start with a product they think is really needed in the market, and then they develop an entire thing. They develop a proof of concept, and then they find out that nobody needs it. So this is all about the main advice here is know your audience, have them tell you what they need.
Exactly.
Don't just go inventing things.
He said that a lot of them had too many features as well. I'm not sure if it's here on the lists. No, it's not. But he said that a lot of them just invent things out of nothing, or they're like, oh, I am missing one feature from a tool, and then they come up with a startup, and then obviously like no one needs that feature actually. You're like the only one who thinks that it's important. So, and I can kind of justify that as well. Well, not justify, but I can relate to that, because when we were walking around the whole TNW, I've seen so many startups. They do the thing that I already know how to do from another tool, and the difference there is very tiny. Maybe they charge less, but I doubt.
These companies are there for like amateur mining.
That's true.
You know, they exist because when somebody doesn't know there's easier ways to do this, or if there's a way that's a little bit harder but ultimately probably free, they sort of just rationalize themselves into buying these tools. It's kind of like when I was talking to you about I was developing a website for somebody, and I came to Alex and I'm like, I have to work with Vix, and he's like, why? And I was like, well, this guy doesn't really know WordPress stuff, I'm sorry to say, and he's hiring me, so I can't do anything about it.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, Wix is just different. I just don't like when they limit you so much.
They limit you have to buy components there. But the UX is so useful. I can see how you can get roped into thinking it's a superior product to WordPress.
It's simple.
It's not, I want to make that clear.
It solves a few things. It's very simple, but yeah, it was very interesting. So yeah.
It turns Word into something like a ready-made in-page template or something, And then you compared to WordPress, that's what it feels like, where you're working on the page rather than doing all that stuff. But the HTML options are so limited, the components are so limited. And that's kind of one of the things we ran into when we were going through all the new companies that were out.
That's true. There was not very much value. I saw the value in a lot of them, but it already exists. That's my point.
That was in the Tech Tour Martech, I guess.
Yes, that was when I still liked it, but I did not like that some of these founders, they had no idea what they're talking about, as if like they felt...
There weren't that many founders there. There were some presenters.
I think they were all founders. It's like really? 1-2 people companies. Yeah, dude. And they all were so unprepared.
Yeah. I mean, I guess. I guess
We were the only ones asking questions. There's literally 10 people and it's silence. And like you asked a question, I asked a question, another person from our group asked a question, but that's it. Everyone else is just there. Well, I don't know what to ask. What is this company?
I do remember asking this person who's talking about like an AI tool they developed, and I would be like, "Oh, what kind of AI is it?" And I was asking like, "What's the code base? You know, what's the API?" And she had said, "But it's generative AI." And I'm like, "Well, that doesn't answer."
Well, that helps.
And then
what's the secret sauce?
Again, is it like a self-made system or is it an API? She's like, "Oh yeah, we're just using GPT." There you go.
Yeah, that's it. So
no, it wasn't GPT. It was DaVinci or something.
Yeah,
the images one, which was basically Canva but more HTML focused.
Canva has AI now as well, and it costs €10 a month. What are you talking about?
Yeah. But this is that thing that we were talking about a few days ago. You just slap the word AI onto it and start saying
so many. Everything's an AI now, and almost every company is like, "Oh, we were created in 2024." I'm like, okay. There was one guy as well that said, "Oh, we're so innovative and we're so cool and blah blah blah." And I said, "What's your hourly rate?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm just one guy, but I outsource people in another country for €50." I'm like, okay, you're not really like doing anything bespoke. You're just an expert because you worked in LinkedIn for many years, which again, I give him credit. It's pretty cool. But then again, you're just outsourcing. They are not really doing anything super cool creative. You just have a really nice leverage.
It's not really a tech company as much as it is sort of a bunch of freelancers.
Right? So that's the point. So I'm like, if you can say, this is all we do, and these are the things. I missed case studies everywhere. It's like if you would say, this is what we built, not like, hey, I used to work at LinkedIn. Great. I used to work at Google. So now what now? I'm God. No, like you have to really show me what you did after you left the company that has so much reputation, and then I'll see. But say, hey, I could just build it cheaper because I have outsourced in another country.
I remember last year, at least they had drafts, showing successes.
Yeah, I remember a few. But then coming back to we kind of deviated, but
I've gone back to one point, I guess.
Yeah, for the learnings from the fuck-ups, a lot of companies, the startup, they just run out of cash. Then there's not the right team. So 22%, they basically fall apart because the team doesn't have the vision and mission and obviously dedication to do that. Others get outperformed. Was very interesting about outperforming stuff, because the guy said, imagine it was from another talk, but imagine you are trying to compete with, Japan or US, where people are like workaholics. When they push 40, 60, 70 hours a week, and then you are working in the Netherlands where it's like, oh, let's have a shorter working day. Let's work 32 hours a week. And then you have a father, like Papa Dag or Mama Dag, right? And then if you want to compete internationally with that attitude, you cannot, because the cultural difference and attitude to work is so different. It's very difficult to kind of outcompete. So it was very interesting about the competition aspect of going globally with let's say a SaaS or some sort of company. I never thought about it that way.
The one point that stuck to me was the one about the sales VP.
What was it?
I don't hire a sales VP.
Ready. That's true.
And then we were like, yeah,
that happens.
As both of us have worked with multiple salespeople over time, this ties into another thing somebody else said at one of these talks. You went to this, I didn't, where he was like, "Oh, they just come to us."
Oh yeah, I love that. Shout out to the guy. It was a talk. Yes, it was a call. It was a conversation. It was a speaker, and the topic was surviving the storm. A deep dive into overcoming adversity for startup founders. And shout out to Ugnis Rimsha, because he's the founder of La La Land. And we met in this situation where I just went to take a piss. And then I'm like, oh, hello. This is how you network nowadays. And then we had it's very interesting because I found his company back in 2020 when COVID happened. And I remember I was researching online. I'm like, what's interesting? Because the Web3 was growing, the NFTs, the animations of like minting designs and NFTs was a big thing back then. I'm like, who does that? And I was working in another agency back then. And I kind of stumbled upon them because they started gaining popularity. And I found La La Land, and I think that he registered it on Google Maps using his like home address, because you just land on the like this residential street, and it's like, oh, this is where the business is.
Yeah.
And it was very interesting because there were two guys. The other guy's name was Aaron Gelbart. He's the owner of Bloom and Wild companies, which basically sells, it's like a gift market, and he sells flowers. It's like Uber, but for flowers.
Yeah.
Which is very cool. But I felt that he was so like concentrated on things. He knew everything, every single detail, like obsessive. And then you have Ugnus on the other side, who's like, oh, clients come to us, we're chill, we raise over 2 mil of euros, and then just do it, and they focus on quality, and people see the quality, and then they come over. And the other guy is like, sales, this 400 people company, I would do this. And like, such a different vibe. Two companies, both successful. The guys do what they want to do. And just the vibe, yeah, basically, I liked it. I really liked how much of a contrast these two guys were.
Yeah. During that time, I went to Alex and I split off to optimize, how many things we could go to. And I went to a talk by growth manager who's worked with the New York Times, who's worked with a whole bunch of places. And she was talking about how a lot of people feel like everyone feels like they've peaked early. And she was talking about...
What do you mean?
Oh, as in terms of their... role in life and feeling a quarter life crisis. And
all right.
So it was an interesting talk in the sense that she was talking about the business sensibilities of young people versus older people, and how it maps on better towards the silent generation than it does towards ours, because there's a real feeling of that they don't have agency as much. So they're very sort of not conservative in their social views, but they're very conservative towards their own idea of fun. This is apparently this is the generation that's doing drugs the least, going out partying the least. It was an interesting talk, but the entire time this is a capstone to the entire conference, I'd say, because a lot of the speakers had this problem where it felt like nobody mentions the economics of anything. Like, I was like, young people don't go out and party because it's expensive.
Fair.
Young people don't go out and do this because it's expensive. Young people do not have time to do this because sometimes they're working 2 jobs. I remember being that guy.
Right. Yeah, that's true. And I think internet also speeds up things. I always make a joke that my mom connected our internet when I was 7 and never restricted me. So I feel I grew up too quick sometimes. But now when you're an iPad kid, there's like, you did not see the life without digital. So therefore you're bombarded with so much information, and you get, into your quarter life crisis so fast, because you're like, oh, what's the point of pensions? What's the point of working hard? Or what's the point of partying and drinking alcohol when, we eat not very high quality food? Everything costs like crazy. I'm not going to drink. I'm not going to party. I'm going to save up as much as anyway, it's a dark path.
Not to bash the speaker. She was a nice lady, and clearly very accomplished. But this is just something I've been hearing from everybody at the conference. Who seem to be very successful people and very driven, but they kind of don't understand other people too well.
So you cannot relate to them. That's what you mean.
Yeah, you can't relate. No, they can't. They can't relate to other people. I think it's the other way around. This was that way with like the crypto people who are just talking about rich people issues.
That's true.
And then I also have to mention it's going to come up later, so I'll mention it there as well. where we had this entire talk about robotics, and there were two different types of guys, one of whom I align with much more, and one of whom I don't. But anyway, let's go back to what you were doing in the meantime.
Yes.
When we split off.
I was watching two founders, the founder of MIRO, which everyone uses, and I use it as well, and PICNIC. And they spoke about pains of blitzscaling and what should be done to work it out. And I really like the guy. I was sitting there, I was like, this guy is, because I really did not know who's the founder of MIRO until he started speaking with a very thick accent in Russian. And I'm like, okay, this guy, this guy is the dude.
Those were two very efficient men. Yes, they just seemed like robots themselves.
Right. The other guy is a German dude. I also don't remember what's his name. The founder of PICNIC. He found PICNIC in the Netherlands, and I really liked it. I really liked that conversation. They were very positive. They felt real. They spoke about how the culture within the companies during the blitz scaling, which means when you hire like 100 people a month or something like that you have to keep up the culture and the ways of doing that. I really like how they spoke about, hard work pays off. So you really just have to grind, and there's no easy recipe or a secret formula for that. It's just patience and determination. He says that what he sees, that 80-90% of the digital AI products will fail in the next 5 years. He feels that the tech industry is now kind of evolving even faster, and a lot of things fail more and more.
Yeah.
Because there's just so much choice, tool stacks, and so much options out there that he feels that you have to maybe start thinking not about the next big tech company, but like shifting industries.
Yeah. I don't know how long the tech boom will last anyway.
Since it started in like 2000, that was websites boom. Now it's AI. Last year was metaverse. It's changing every year.
Yeah, it's there's also, most of those are bubbles rather than booms.
True.
I feel like a boom would be more like longer lasting. That's how I divide them, at least. I know there's some technical descriptors I'm missing out on. But any more to say about that one?
I really like what he said. The last thing was when they're hiring people at MIRO. So he believes that the character is now much more important during hiring process than tools and like tool stack knowledge and being hyper focused in like doing one thing very well. So he's like, I'm okay with generalists, and I am right, and they're developing some sort of internal processes they call character that is mostly focused on who are you as a person, how flexible you are, how open to new knowledge you are, how okay are you with collaborating internationally, because they're a super international company. And he said, I don't care much about the skills. Obviously, if you're like a developer, he does care about that. But I really like that he said it's about what kind of person you are and your attitude rather than just the skill set. And I think that's pretty cool that they're, publicly admitting that anyone can work here. We're very remote.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that's always miffed me about hiring practices is, you need to know this, and this. And that discourages people who can learn that from, going for the job. And they often go, I don't know this, therefore I'm not suitable for the job. And so many of the times I've not had the skills. I've had to learn on the job very quickly. But I've just had to have a certain mindset that the company can work with. Like the job I currently work. I did not know how to use, for example, Pro Rank Tracker. I didn't know how to use how to generate featured snippets on Google. I didn't know how to do a bunch of these things that I was going to learn on the job. And they use a very different CMS, so I had to learn that as well. But the main thing they tested me for was, how well can you do this task on your own? Because we want to see your thinking process. Outline what changes you would make to a web page. Outline what you would do here in this situation. What are your grammatical tendencies? So that stuff is what I was hired for. And I think so many of the other people who were there were hired as interns. They had no work experience. But then you get to mold that person, if you're good at detecting somebody who's got potential.
Yeah, and he also mentioned that a lot of people that you hire, they have to start building this kind of attitude and culture bottoms up.
Yeah.
And he said a lot of companies are trying to still force it from top to bottoms. Like, of course, you have to walk the walk, not just talk the talk, he said.
Yeah.
And that you have to lead by example on the top, but then it still has to, the inspiration should come by, let's say, the top management, what they do. But the bottom line, let's say, the bottoms up, they have to see that, get inspired, and bring that like from bottom up in the organization culturally. Yeah. So that was also very, very honest. I really liked the conversation. It was very honest. It was very open. Cool guys.
Well, we're going to wrap up soon because we've only got 2 other things to talk about now.
Last one was the Girlboss, Sophia Amoruso.
We were both at that one.
You want to give us a little bit?
Sophia Amoruso is quite popular. She formed this company called Nasty Gal, and it started off as an eBay trading company, and they basically used to sell fashion, sort of like a, what do you call them, thrift shop.
Yes.
Selling like old school retro fashion, and then it suddenly blew up, and it became like $1 million company.
$100 million.
$100 million company. Yeah. But she was giving a talk about how she blew all her money, basically. Her words, not mine. That's not me. It's all you. She said, I started from the lowest of the low, and this is what it amounted to. She was a very engaging speaker, but what she said was very autobiographical, so it doesn't really apply in a specific sense to anybody else, but it's just kind of a fun story she told. And the other thing is the crux of everything she was saying could be summed up as be weird, be different. Don't worry about whether you're cut out for business, because personally she thinks no one is.
That's also true. I really like what you said. It's like, I did not want to do business. I did not want to sit in this room with these important people, because she's like, I don't understand. I don't care. I just want to do the thing I do, which I feel gives a little bit of a push to people who just want to do their own thing, right? So it's like, I don't have to be in this room with the people that are, with large egos and just pushing the narrative and maybe do not know anything. Yeah. I'm just going to do what I want to do. And that's what she did, and she succeeded. But there's so much luck in that, man.
There's always luck in that, to be honest. Like, so much of, as much as the business theory as you can learn, at the end of the day, it really comes down to first mover advantage and luck.
eBay is still a thing. I don't know. But it feels that she was just at the right time, at the right place, at the right kind of attitude. Michael Moore released a song in 2010 when he's like, was it thrift store? What was the...
Michael Moore, yeah.
Yeah, so like that was the time of like thrifting was like super popular, and she created her store as well, something 2011, 10, I don't know, 9. Yeah, so it was literally the time where thrifting was trendy.
Yeah, there was some real parallel thinking happening that made this business really profitable.
Exactly.
And that's how it usually goes. Sometimes you have an idea and it hits on the trend.
Yeah, and I think she was very lucky to do that, but also because she lost so much money, I think, with like just decisions and maybe being out-trended. And I really like that she said, now I just do business training. You can use it on my website. I did it alone. That's the part I feel that is cool, because she's like, now I'm going to do this. I have to capitalize on my knowledge.
We're listening to a very abridged version of
That's also true, yes.
So we have no idea how much help she might have had, that she has to gloss over for the sake of narrative,
That's also true. You're fair.
The other thing is, we could do an entire episode about luck in business, but in her case, I think she was seizing on a trend, because in 2012, that was just the tail end of the financial crisis. So everybody was sharing a lot more clothing rather than buying new stuff. So she really saw a business opportunity there and seized on it. So
she was already there, I think.
She was already there, yeah. It caught up to her.
Yes.
The opportunity. And, that doesn't mean she doesn't still have to seize something.
Yeah.
You still have to do the work afterwards.
That's true. In a nutshell, what do you think about the conference?
We're not fully done yet. There was one thing I went to that you didn't go to.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
So this one was robots aren't just hype; they can give superpowers to the labor force. And it was an interesting talk between a guy called Dennis Van Cleef, who was the Schiphol's program and lead backend manager, and Albert Maas, who was the CEO of mobile robotics developer Avular. And they both showed. This is the thing. This is what was missing from a lot of the other talks. These guys brought video, and they brought their technology actually working on the field. Mm-hmm. And they give us numbers. This is how much it cut down for Schiphol. This is how much it did this. And this is how much the burnout rate has decreased for our employees because they don't have to pick up baggage anymore.
Whoa!
So
do you remember how much was it?
I don't remember any of the specific numbers, but I remember being happy there were numbers.
It's the first one, always the last one.
It was very interesting, but also because this is the only talk that actually had understanding of macroeconomics and macropolitics as well. And it led to an interesting discussion between these two guys who did not agree. Yeah. So one of them, one of these guys, Dennis Van Cleef, he came there and he was like, the government came up to us and said, you got 2 years, you need to automate this. Mm-hmm. And they need to automate baggage handling at Schiphol. And they, I don't know if the government subsidized anything, probably not, but they told them, you need to fix this, this, and this. And they had to invent the technology from scratch by hiring other companies and mm-hmm. Pitching the way that Schiphol works and what inefficiencies can be cut out by automation. And so they developed this machine that really does pick up baggage. And you might think, oh, it just picks up baggage. That's not a hard task. Think about how many different sizes of baggage go on an airplane, shapes, and everything. So this thing is is able to calibrate the size of bag, pick it up, put the appropriate amount of both suction and hand force, and just put the baggage in the other area so it can be processed further. Mm-hmm. And it was a cool technology that has a real use, and it's making, if anything, improves the Schiphol Airport. I'm down for it. That is one of the busiest places on the planet.
Best airport ever for me.
In some ways, it is, honestly, but that's a different topic. Then Albert Maas was also there, and he was talking about his robotics projects, and they were quite neat as well. They were a bit less centered around something you'd encounter in daily life, mm-hmm. but they were cool. They basically had a bit of disagreement because one of them was like, "Oh yeah, automation's gonna take care of everything, and we should let it." And mm-hmm. the other one was like, no, it needs to be done slowly so that the labor force can be integrated properly. The age-old discussion. Mm-hmm. And I'm much more on the side of the Schiphol guy because he understood that you just can't ditch labor for all of this. And the presenter also asked. She was like, "Do you see a role of that governments have to play in this?" And that's when he volunteered the story about that the government kind of forced us to do this. Mm. It forced a good innovation, but it was forced nonetheless. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how to feel about that. It's a tricky thing. It led to something good, but it's also just sort of just handcuffing the company to do it, which often has to happen. But and I agree with it in situations where the product is potentially deadly or needs some real strong changes or is very dangerous for people working with it. But in this case, it can be dangerous. They outlined that Schiphol Airport has a turnover rate that's really high, and some of that has to do with pay, some of that has to do with the fact that baggage handlers are doing physical labor, mm-hmm. and you can't do that for too long, day in, day out. So that was the government's reasoning that, you got to make this safer.
Fair. I think robotics in something like factory, I have a Roomba. Yeah. That thing is amazing. So if I have to break my back for something to be like transferred, cleaned, or pushed, or whatever in a warehouse, I don't see why not, right? If it's really has an impact on your health, like your back, your knees, you're not getting younger. Yeah. So therefore, I do see robotics as a cool thing. I'm not okay with robots that, kill other people. That's what I'm not really looking forward to, but something that really helps, like packaging or wrapping something or warehouse. I'm super cool with that.
Yeah, eliminate physical labor as much as possible, but the issue then becomes there's all these jobs that people rely on. And if you automate them, it'll become like the Luddite situation back in the day after industrialization, where there used to be all these people who made those goods by hand. And, now they're suddenly out of jobs, and then it creates massive economic recession.
This is where the question that I took away. I said that you have to decide if this thing is going to help you as a person, if this thing is going to, let's say AI, right? Yeah. Robotics. Are you as a person going to be faster while operating with it? Or is it going to do work when you're not there, right? Or is it going to do a part of the job? So that's where you just have to train the personnel, I guess, to be like part of this ecosystem. And you can find better, maybe, jobs for them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a difficult topic. And even within that, the subtopic of how much the government should be forcing automation in dangerous areas comes in. And this one didn't really cause a loss in jobs. Mm-hmm. It caused a loss in tasks. Mm-hmm. In that they don't no longer have to do that section of the baggage handling which is heavy and potentially backbreaking.
So it's just part of the thing.
Yeah. And he was quite realistic about it, the manager at Skipple. He was like, they forced us, but it was quite good in the end. And this technology is really helping us. And again, I have to raise the point that nobody talks about wages anymore. Where they were like talking about, but nobody wants to do these jobs. And I'm like, nobody wants to do these jobs because there's no money in it, man. You can't make a living off of this.
I wish I would have to work not for money. I would just everything would be, where's my income on a monthly base, and I'll just do what I want to do. Who wants to work?
I mean, throughout the history, people have spent their entire lives doing one sort of task that seems quite menial. People were farmers for all their lives. People were ran a bar. That's long since the 1800s. You see a bunch of these in Amsterdam.
Yeah.
So these jobs will always need to exist, but what's changed is they've suddenly become devalued economically.
Which they shouldn't be. What was it? The frontline work still? What was the terminology during COVID they used? Unskilled essential workers or unskilled something. It's unskilled workers or something like that.
I don't know about the unskilled part, but they were so ardent about calling them essential.
Oh yeah, I think it was the a waiter is not essential. A cook is not essential. Yeah. I think it was not essential. Terrible. So in a nutshell, what's the rate out of 10?
I mean, it was a decent 7.
Yeah, I would go for a 6.
I give it a 7 because just by the nature of these things, the speed at which they have to convey the information is a detriment in that you get a bit more low information stuff. Some talks are more interesting than others because the speaker is better at condensing it. But on the other hand, it doesn't waste much of your time and you get to do a lot of different stuff. I wasn't expecting the broad range that I got to see. Mm-hmm.
That's a good point. Maybe I'll do 6.5 then. Maybe the weather did not play a very good role in the second day. But
didn't stop us from drinking.
But in general, I really like the variety of things that I heard. The speakers were, maybe I'm just a little bit more into the topics they were talking about. Therefore, I had a lot of kind of internal disagreements. Yeah. But it's not necessarily bad. It's basically giving me another perspective, which is very good, actually. Right? Because I'm like, oh my God, why am I feeling this upset or angry or disagreement with this person? Yeah. Because there's another perspective, which I think is great because it causes people to have a dialogue.
For me, I don't think any of the problems with that I would have with the conference like this had to do with any of the organization or anything like that.
Not at all.
Tech itself is in a sort of precarious place right now where nobody knows what they're talking about. So you run into that. It's just a microcosm of that. I think the organization's great. I think the speakers they brought in were competent at their jobs.
That's true. I agree. So I like this. I totally agree with you. Nothing against, the organization was great, even though 2 talks were canceled. But yeah. I do not have, schedules changed or whatnot. So I really liked everything, but just this part of speakers somehow just made me a little bit of, angry, or there were some talks that were like packed and others were maybe not described as well. So therefore you had like an empty room, like the blockchain one was empty, tokenization one was empty, and then you go like 13 fuck-ups, the room was overcrowded.
Oh yeah, I think people were just attracted to the most fancy sounding ones.
So, but they probably should do that for the other ones then too. Yeah. So that's where I feel that other talks did not deserve the amount of people, others did. So like that disbalance. I don't know how to fix it. I have no idea. I'm not an expert. Organizationally, it was fine. Venue is fine. People are amazing. A lot of food for thoughts. But there's of course stuff you want to work on, like the price of the ticket.
Well, I guess that's the end of that.
Yes. Well, thank you for listening, everyone. Next year, go join TNW event and see for yourself what's going to be the next thing in tech.
If anything, it's a really good barometer of what's being discussed. Every year brings you some insight, even if you're like, I don't know how to feel about that.
If you were living under the rock and out of the loop for the last year, this is going to kind of bring you into the loop again, and you're good for the next year.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.
Enjoy.